you know, the rapper Snoop Dogg is under fire this morning for a mock assassination of President Trump in a music video. Actually, it's quite disgusting. What's your reaction?
Well, it is disgusting. I mean, when Hillary Clinton talked about the basket of deplorables, when is this going to end? This type of reaction, this violence, this vitriolic reaction to the election of November 2016, the violence we see in the streets. If this were flipped to 8 years ago and this was happening in a different situation and that was a mock-up of President Obama, the media, everyone would be outraged. So I think that Mr. Dogg, he is probably in violation of U.S. statute and code, and he needs to be held accountable for his actions.
So what should be what should happen here then? I mean, to do a mock assassination of the president.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, the Secret Service. The Secret Service should investigate this. They should look into it because it is a violation.
And he has the president dressed as a clown. I mean, look at this video. The president is dressed as a clown.
Loretta Lynch was Obama's attorney general. She's the one that actually met with Bill Clinton on a plane in private for about 45 minutes while the FBI was supposed to be investigating Bill's wife, in case you forgot. And then Lynch acted like that was no big deal to meet the husband of the person she was supposed to be investigating in private. So yeah, it's pretty clear where Loretta Lynch's loyalties lie, which makes the latest news about her not really that surprising. Because recently she posted a video statement online calling for people to protest the current administration. She was very dramatic in it, acting like it's the end of the world, as a lot of people from the old guard are doing to scare people right now. In the video, she said, "It has been people, individuals who have banded together, ordinary people who simply saw what needed to be done and came together and supported those ideals, who have made the difference." Now that's all fine and good, right? But then she got to the nutty part. She said, "They've marched, they've bled, and yes, some of them have died. This is hard. Every good thing is. We have done this before, we can do this again." So after she talked about people and how they used to bleed and die in a protest, and I'm assuming she was talking about probably the civil rights movement in the 60s and 70s, she called for people to do it again. As in, it's time for people to march. And to, bleed, and to, die again. Maybe she didn't mean people have to die, but she certainly implied that people need to get that serious about marching and protesting again, to the point where people might die. This is the former Attorney General, remember. It doesn't get more establishment than that, calling for people to march.
According to the Department of Education, 91% of families are concerned with the environment of traditional schooling, public and private. This could be the reason that 1.8 million children were homeschooled in America in 2012, more than double the 850,000 in 1999. And this represents 3.4% of school-age children. And 64% of those parents say a desire to provide religious instruction was a top reason for homeschooling.
It is a question many parents have to consider. Where will I send my child to school? A new movement called the School Choice Program is working to give parents more options to answer that question. Ben Kennedy has the story.
To be able to select foods that are what? That are good for our bodies.
10th grader Amaria Jones is learning about biology at Cornerstone, a Christian school in Washington, D.C. that she's attending thanks to School Choice.
I'm able to, have more time to learn, I guess, and also go to teachers for extra help.
She is excited about getting up every day to get here on time, to learn, to maintain her grades.
The School Choice movement aims to let parents decide where their child learns, giving them options other than just the public school in their neighborhood. State-run programs even provide scholarships for low-income families like Jones to help cover tuition.
We didn't become eligible until after my husband had an accident and I had to leave to become a caregiver. But it's always been important to us to find the best school that we could.
It was worth it because somebody gave me a choice to, choose.
How important is it to have a school that's faith-based?
Very important for me. I think this makes me comfortable. At the public school I went to, I didn't feel like I could share my faith with others, and I wasn't as strong in my faith.
Opponents of school choice argue that it affects the public education system and it turns education into a profit-making industry.
The voucher that we receive from the federal government is far less than the per pupil allotment given to the public schools. So in essence, for every student that comes to Cornerstone using that voucher, we actually save the public schools money. So I think it's a false argument to say that we hurt the public schools in any way.
In President Trump's recent address to Congress, he called education the civil rights issue of our day and suggested that allowing school choice will help revitalize urban regions that are failing minority kids.
These families should be free to choose the public, private, charter, magnet, religious, or homeschool that is right for them.
There's a new star in town, and he's not your usual Hollywood heartthrob. Robo-Thespian is, as his name suggests, a robot, and he's the lead in an unconventional new play on in London.
It's a story about a robot maker who builds, all his life he builds robots. He develops a degenerative illness in midlife and realizes he's not going to live to remain a companion to his wife. His wife by now is developing early Alzheimer's. So he builds his final creation, his final robot, to be a companion to his wife.
Actress Judy Norman plays opposite Robo-Thespian. She spends most of the play talking to the robot and even shares a kiss with him.
When he looks at me, it's going to sound weird, but he's very affectionate, and I like him. I really like him.
The play poses big questions about love, death, technology, and even the future of acting.
Sure, of course I think there's a future. I mean, this show has proved to me that really working with a robot is seriously not that different than working with a normal actor.
In 1970, Japanese roboticist Masahiro Mori referred to a concept called the uncanny valley. Our affinity toward robots and animations increases as they physically appear more human-like, except for a large dip where they are almost but not quite there. In a new study, scientists found that natural-seeming social behavior was fine when coming from a human or from a computer following a script. But when a computer appeared to feel genuine frustration and sympathy, it put people on edge. The study suggests that participants may have felt human uniqueness was under threat.
The French pro-life movement faces being crippled by a proposed law that would criminalize any website that tries to persuade a woman not to have an abortion. Anyone convicted under the so-called crime of digital interference law could get 2 years in prison and a $31,000 fine. While it's passed the Senate and National Assembly, it's not law yet. It's being reviewed by France's highest legal body, the Constitutional Council. This isn't the United States, where the pro-life movement is a major political force. If passed, as many expect, the law will make an already weak anti-abortion movement in France even weaker. The government says it's trying to stop fake news about abortion. Pro-life leaders call it censorship of their views, and they feel like their movement is being strangled.
This law has the risk of suffocating the pro-life movement.
Jean-Marie Lemonnet is president of the Jérôme Lejeune Foundation, one of France's leading pro-life organizations.
This
new law is extremely dangerous because it limits the freedom of expression. First, it means that the government is deciding what is right and what is wrong, what we can tell about abortion and not.
France legalized abortion in 1975 and is today one of the most pro-abortion nations in Europe, with more than 2/3 saying in one poll that a woman should be able to have an abortion whenever she wants.
Utah's legislature has passed a bill which strengthens the state's anti-bigamy laws. On Thursday, March 9th, Utah narrowly passed HB 99, which changes the wording of what makes someone a bigamist in the state and adds harsher penalties for cases involving other crimes like domestic abuse. Cody Brown, star of the reality TV show Sister Wives, sued Utah in 2011, saying that the state's anti-bigamy law was unconstitutional. The polygamist won in U.S. District Court, but the decision was overturned on appeal last year. Last month, Brown attempted to challenge the law with the Supreme Court, but was declined. Utah State Representative Mike Noel said that he proposed changes to the anti-bigamy law after reviewing the Brown case, arguing that the rewording would help the state avoid any potential lawsuits. Polygamists argue the new bill will discourage people witnessing crimes like fraud or abuse from speaking out.
The developing story for you now. In the top European Union court has ruled that employers do have the right to ban religious symbols at their workplaces. Kevin Osbeck joins us now from Brussels with the details. Now, Kevin, what exactly does this ruling say and what will it mean for European countries?
So this ruling says that companies operating in the 28 EU countries can prevent their employees from wearing items of clothing that have a political, philosophical, or religious nature to them. Now, this includes the Islamic headscarf. This was brought to the European Court of Justice after two Muslim women, one here living in Belgium, the other living over in France, were terminated from their jobs for refusing to take off their headscarf. Well, the court just about an hour ago ruled that a company can in fact ban women from wearing a headscarf only if the company has what it called a neutral dress code in place. This ruling also specifies that, say for an example, a customer comes into a business, complains about an employee wearing a headscarf. In that case, if the employer then forces a woman to take off her headscarf, that is discrimination, but it's not discrimination if the company has this neutral dress code policy in place. So that's exactly what this ruling says. And of course, this could really impact thousands of Muslim women across this continent who wear headscarves to work and who feel like they face discrimination, and now possibly their employer could put in place one of these neutral dress codes and prevent them from wearing their headscarf to work.
Dutch fishing trawler Grietje Boos easily cuts through the North Sea. But fishing is a tough job. Grueling conditions, long hours. Jan de Boer's whole family is in the fishing industry, and they have always voted for the same party, until now.
We have always the Christian parties, but now we think Geert Wilders is the only party the fight to the European rules.
For de Boer, the problem is EU regulations on fishing. He takes special issue with a law that says he must count every fish he catches against a mandated quota. Even the smaller fish, he believes, should be allowed back into the water to keep fish stocks up.
Islam and all the other things, yes. We cannot handle that. It's for me, the important thing is just the rules. We want to fishing and our children want to fishing. Yeah.
Fishing researcher William de Heer tells me it's less about fish and more about Wilders' call to ban the Muslim holy book, the Quran.
Do you know who you'll be voting for this election?
Yeah, for sure, no doubt about it. I will vote on Wilders. He is the only one who is having the courage to tell the people what's going on in our country. We are having the feeling that we are losing our roots, our identity.
Dutch identity is strong in the fishing village of Urk. Foreigners are a rarity. Wilders' campaign posters are visible in some neighborhoods. And some here, like Tony Regnerus, believe migrants and refugees are getting unfair benefits. He gets up early every day to pack and deliver the fresh catch, mostly to Asian food restaurants. And when he drives into the cities, he resents what he sees.
Every day I come in big cities, in Rotterdam, and Gouda, and Delft, and Alphen aan de Rijn. They're all wearing Canada Goose jackets. I don't have one. The €600, I can't pay it. I can't pay it. And I'm the working man. It's got to be the other way around.
Last year, the Netherlands took in more than 9,000 refugees. Asylum seekers here do receive benefits, basic housing, up to $60 a week, and the possibility of a job, but only for 24 weeks in a year. And 75% of that salary is reclaimed by the government to pay for upkeep.
You can't eat the head.
But Regnerus says the government should be taking care of its own before allowing others in. The average fisherman here makes little more than $2,000 a month, according to government statistics, a salary that hasn't changed much in the last decade.
Immigrants all coming in, and they get a better life, and they get a better life than the working man. They're not pushed to do anything with their life. They're not pushed to get a job, or I'm not talking about freeloading or something like that. I just mean you're here, you're welcome. But when are you going back?
These Dutch fishermen pride themselves on their family traditions and hard work, but they are also angry and frustrated. Every day, they cast their nets. Election Day is their one chance to cast their votes.
Scooping out buckets of rationed water has become a way of life for people in some of the poorest areas of Mexico City. In the sprawling neighborhood of Itzalapa, many families receive just 2 barrels a week from the local government. That gives each person in Cristina Alfaro's house just 6 liters of water a day. The average Mexico City resident uses 46 times more.
I have school-aged children, and sometimes there isn't enough water to wash their uniforms, but then they can't go to school. So sometimes we have to buy bottled water just to be able to wash clothes. It's incredibly tough.
As taps run dry, families here have been forced to become experts in conservation and recycling. Dishes are washed just once every few days, and every drop of grey water is reused. But residents of this community are not the only ones who are suffering. Across Mexico City, more than 2 million people have been hit hard by the water shortages. And as the city continues to expand and aquifers are further depleted, this crisis is set to grow. Twice weekly government water deliveries provide some relief, but they can't compensate for aging infrastructure and pipes. They leak 40% of the city's water. That's around 6,000 liters per second. Environmental activists say it's a crisis government leaders have failed to address.
The local governments are more concerned about winning votes and staying in power. They don't invest in the kinds of infrastructure that are needed, like pipes which go underground so they aren't very visible.
Solutions are difficult, but without a long-term strategy, scenes like this could become much more common. The fundamental right to water that Cristina says should be guaranteed for all.
Biologists filmed the sick Saiga antelope as it struggled to breathe and stay on its feet. Eventually it succumbed, one of many, to the symptoms of a viral livestock plague called Peste Petit Rumino, or PPR. More than 4,000 Saiga have died since goats and sheep in Mongolia first caught the disease last year. Scientists think the disease was spread from China.
This morning,
field biologists and rangers could do little to contain the disease in the wild, beyond collecting and burying carcasses, while vets vaccinated domestic animals.
a big challenge we're facing is that we have a vast area to cover, with a very few wildlife rangers and biologists, and very little funds to do so.
The Saiga is thought to have roamed the Eurasian grasslands since the Ice Age. Mongolian Saiga are a smaller subspecies of the Eurasian variety. They live only in Mongolia and are notoriously shy. While about 100,000 Saiga are left globally, there were only about 13,000 Mongolian Saiga before this outbreak, and with so many still dying, the future is grim for this critically endangered antelope. Sick and solitary Saiga lie dying on the grasslands. Wildlife vets say the spread of the disease is slowing, but there's another threat. A parasite which killed at least 200,000 Saiga in Kazakhstan 2 years ago. Nomadic tribes and wildlife have shared these grasslands for centuries, but pressure is increasing. The number of livestock surpassed 60 million last year. Herders are competing with wildlife for food and space.
Our government released a decree stating that herders should not set up their spring caps and let their livestock enter Saiga pasture lands. But it's really hard to enforce. Where else can they live and graze their livestock?
Scientists expect 80% of the local Saiga population to die of the disease by the end of spring in May. That's more than 10,000 animals. The hope is enough survive for the species to recover sometime in the future.
Local transmission of the Zika virus in Florida may have occurred as early as June 15th of last year and likely infected people living in surrounding counties. The warning means that some men who donated semen to sperm banks in the area may not have been aware that they were infected and may have donated sperm infected with the Zika virus, officials from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the Food and Drug Administration said.
न सरकारले हेरेको भए यस्तो आउँछ गराउन पारेर कुनै सरकारले हामीलाई हेरेको छैन
Microsoft has just released a new app which allows people to access the world's most powerful telescopes from the convenience of their own PC. The Microsoft Worldwide Telescope enables users to explore the entire universe without even having to get on a bus, let alone train to be an astronaut. Users can either look around the universe solo or take a guided tour with narration from astronomers and educators pointing out the most interesting things in space. The Worldwide Telescope also acts as a time machine, allowing users to travel 2,000 years backwards in time or project 2,000 years forward into the future.